Imagine a quiet apartment after a long weekday with a cup, damp towel, shoes, open laptop, and kitchen scraps each holding a small part of the day open. Nothing in the scene is a disaster, yet every object asks for a little attention. This is why a home, a budget, or a personal routine can feel heavy even when no single problem is large. Japanese-inspired household and self-management practices often focus on boundaries, return paths, and small visible endings. Today we will explore 7 small endings that keep yesterday from occupying tomorrow. There are 7 ideas, and none requires a perfect personality, an expensive organizer, or an extreme reset. Each section follows the same practical question. Where does the friction begin? What is the smallest action that changes it? And how can the result be made visible? These practices are not universal rules for every Japanese person or every household. Use them as design principles and adapt them to your own space, income, body, and schedule. Choose one idea rather than attempting the full list. A small method becomes powerful through repetition, not through one impressive day. 7 ideas may sound like another checklist, but the number is only a map. The real work is to identify the one point where your day repeatedly loses time, money, space, or calm. Watch how each rule changes the environment around a decision rather than asking the person to become permanently stronger. The examples are concrete because vague advice is difficult to repeat. You should be able to see the object, location, cue, and finish. When those 4 parts are clear, progress no longer depends on remembering an inspiring sentence at the perfect moment. It becomes a path built into ordinary life. Number 1. Water left working. A cup beside the bed, droplets around the sink, and a damp cloth look harmless at night, but moisture keeps a room feeling unfinished and can create odor by morning. Before sleep, empty standing water. Rinse the final cup, squeeze the cloth, and hang it where air can reach both sides. Leave the sink basin open rather than filled with objects. Dryness is a visible finish. It tells the eye that washing has ended and prevents tomorrow's first action from beginning inside yesterday's wet zone. The important boundary is between an activity that is still open and one that has visibly returned to rest. Look for the moment when the useful action is already complete, but its objects have not yet received an ending. Closing at that moment costs less energy than reconstructing the whole story later. The home or routine becomes easier because attention is released while the context is still obvious. A practical first step is this. Start with the single dampest object in the home. Give it air, then stop. Morning begins with a clear basin and a fresh cloth instead of a smell or a cold puddle. Number 2. Food without a decision. A half-cut vegetable, open snack, rice paddle, or uncovered bowl is not only clutter. It is food quality declining while the mind postpones a decision. Seal what will be eaten, cool what must be stored, compost what is finished, and return one tool to its home. Do not reorganize the whole refrigerator. Food needs a destination more quickly than most household objects. A 3-minute decision protects money, safety, and tomorrow's meal at the same time. Do not expand this into a whole room project. The value comes from completing the smallest meaningful unit. If the action begins creating new piles, new categories, or a long list of improvements, reduce it again. A good daily rule has a clear edge and a natural stopping point. It should make the next use easier without turning the present moment into a test of endurance. A practical first step is this. Choose the item most likely to dry out or spoil first. The kitchen wakes with usable ingredients rather than evidence of waste. Number 3. Shoes facing yesterday. When shoes remain turned toward the room, bags block the genkan, and an umbrella lies open, the entrance continues to describe arrival even after everyone is home. Turn tomorrow's shoes toward the door, close and dry the umbrella, place keys and the daily bag on their landing point, and clear one straight step inside. Orientation creates readiness. The entrance shifts from receiving the old day to supporting the next departure without a search or obstacle. Notice that the habit does not demand speed. It removes the decision that would otherwise wait for a more tired version of you. Move carefully enough to see where each object or action actually belongs. This attention prevents the common cycle of rushing, hiding, and searching again. The result may look modest, but it reduces the number of reminders competing in the background of the day. A practical first step is this: align one pair of shoes and place one bag. That is enough to establish the boundary. The first movement of morning becomes forward rather than corrective. Number 4. Laundry between stages. Clean clothes on a chair and damp clothes in a machine are technically washed, but they still occupy attention because the handoff has stopped halfway. Move the load forward by one complete category. Hang 5 damp pieces, fold the towels, or put away the contents of one drawer. Keep the remainder contained. A complete category is easier for the brain to release than a large pile with no visible edge. Progress must have a finish the eye can recognize. The method becomes useful only when it remains small enough for an ordinary weekday, not just an ideal day. Test it on the evening when energy is low, the schedule changed, and motivation is absent. If the minimum version can still happen, the system is strong. Consistency grows from a design that respects human limits, not from pretending those limits will disappear tomorrow. A practical first step is this: choose towels, socks, or one-person shirts, never the entire mountain. The chair becomes furniture again, and the next laundry stage is obvious. Number 5. Work still speaking. An open laptop, charging cable, notebook, and coffee cup allow work to continue visually even when the mind is tired and no useful work is happening. Close the laptop, coil one cable, return the cup, and leave only the object needed to begin tomorrow. Remove work from the sleeping field of view when possible. The brain reads visible tools as invitations and obligations. A closed work surface creates a psychological doorway between effort and recovery. The important boundary is between an activity that is still open and one that has visibly returned to rest. Look for the moment when the useful action is already complete, but its objects have not yet received an ending. Closing at that moment costs less energy than reconstructing the whole story later. The home or routine becomes easier because attention is released while the context is still obvious. A practical first step is this: use one handspan of desk as the closing zone and clear only that area. Rest feels permitted because the room no longer asks for one more task. Number 6. Bath moisture trapped. A closed bathroom with a wet mat, bunched towel, and water on the floor holds humidity exactly where it cannot escape. Spread the towel, lift the mat, pull water toward the drain, and leave the ventilation path open. The ritual should finish before the mirror clears. Airflow works when surfaces are exposed. Hanging and separating wet layers reduces odor and makes routine cleaning easier without adding products. Do not expand this into a whole room project. The value comes from completing the smallest meaningful unit. If the action begins creating new piles, new categories, or a long list of improvements, reduce it again. A good daily rule has a clear edge and a natural stopping point. It should make the next use easier without turning the present moment into a test of endurance. A practical first step is this: lift one wet textile so both sides can dry. The bathroom becomes a drying room for a few minutes instead of a sealed container of moisture. Number 7. Tomorrow's first obstacle. Every household has one predictable morning delay: missing keys, an empty kettle, a bag without a document, or breakfast items hidden behind other things. Remove one obstacle before bed. Fill the kettle, set out the bowl, place the bag by the exit, or put keys in their fixed tray. Preparation is most powerful when it is selective. One thoughtful arrangement creates trust. A long checklist simply extends the working day. Notice that the habit does not demand speed. It removes the decision that would otherwise wait for a more tired version of you. Move carefully enough to see where each object or action actually belongs. This attention prevents the common cycle of rushing, hiding, and searching again. The result may look modest, but it reduces the number of reminders competing in the background of the day. A practical first step is this: ask which single object creates the most repeated morning search, then prepare only that. Tomorrow receives a small act of hospitality from the person you are tonight. The house does not need to be perfect before sleep. It needs only a few honest endings. Close the wet things, the food things, the work things, and the path you will use first. Choose the loop that would otherwise greet you with the most resistance tomorrow. Finish that one tonight, then allow the remaining signs of life to rest. A calm morning is not created by waking earlier. It is created when the previous evening stops sending unfinished decisions forward. Choose one action from this episode and make its finish visible before the day ends. Then stop and let that small result be enough.